All right, we are back. Welcome everyone to the lunchtime hour with your hosts, and now I will pronounce it correctly because I did get some corrections in the comment section. Jose, not Jose, Jose, and myself, Couch Investor. So welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, Jose. How are you?
Good, Neil. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even notice it. I think I saw a comment about it too. I'm like, even now that you mentioned the both ways you said it, Neil, I don't hear a difference in my ear. So pretty impressive that other people did. So, but yeah, pretty good, Neil. I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing good, doing good. It's quite strange that we're Tuesday because usually this is the second trading day of the week, but now it's actually the first. So the whole schedule in my head is a bit screwed up. But all in all, the markets are fairly green today, so can't complain.
Yep. And Neil, before we get started, just quick shout out to my chat here. We see Meditation, Anonymous, Giddos, No, and Oscar. So just want to say hello from my chat. So thank you guys all for passing along and hopefully enjoy a good hour that Neil and I are going to have here.
For sure. We'll do, as always, a Q&A session later in the stream. So if you have questions, do save them for later. And if you have like a serious question, you can always put question in all caps, so it's easier for us to find that much easier. So yeah, what do you want to start with? You want to start with the Intel news?
Sure. Actually, maybe Neil, let's start with TSMC. I think TSMC is pretty fun because it does kind of drive a nice amount of bullish sentiment to the overall semiconductor space and the overall tech market. But regardless, we are seeing kind of a pretty green day today, right? Right, Neil, it's pretty nice, at least for now.
Yeah, for now. Most semis are up. I think Marvell and ARM are down slightly, but that's about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Neil, I mean, the last time we did a stream was I think Wednesday, and TSMC reported on Thursday, so we haven't really had a chance to talk about it. I'm pretty sure both of our channels have probably done an earnings video on it. Neil, have you done one?
Yes, that's correct.
So I think just a nice top level overview for those that maybe might have missed it. TSMC, one of my favorite things about it, Neil, maybe I'll send it to you to one of your favorite things. One of my favorite things is they increased their capital expenditure dramatically, right? For 2024, they spent about $29 billion, if I remember correctly. For 2025, they're expecting to spend somewhere between 38 to 42 billion dollars in capital expenditure. And this to me is very bullish because I know usually when we see capex increase, you might think, hey, look, this is a company that's just over investing in something. We're seeing it a lot with big tech right now, Neo, right? And the biggest bearish case is, look, these companies are investing and we don't know if there's a future to what they're investing. But I want to say TSM is a lot more conservative, in my opinion. Whenever they increase capital expenditure like this, is because they see something brewing in the next few years. Because it's going to take some time before these chips really, before these manufacturing plants really come to life, or this equipment really makes usage. But it just tells me that TSMC sees something brewing in the semiconductor market, and as a semiconductor investor, I'm pretty excited. So short term, it's always volatile, but at least TSMC's guidance gave us great things about the AI space and about kind of the future of the semiconductor industry, at least for the next few years.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think their comments on advanced packaging, the demand there was pretty bullish, all in all, especially because this is TSMC. They play a key role here in this whole semiconductor space, in this whole AI space. So the fact that they are willing to increase spending so much already is not just to say, oh, like there's this indication for fake demand. No, these are masters at return shareholder value, right? So they're not going to spend billions and billions of dollars just for the sake of spending. They are spending because they know the demand is just so high. Demand is just so high, so we need to expand as quickly as possible, which is great if you're a semiconductor investor. That's exactly what you wanted to hear. Because if that was not the case, then I would say that a lot of big tech are overspending. Then I would say that a lot of semiconductor stocks overall, especially the equipment makers, right? Because those are the names that we've seen jump up the next day. Um, we would have seen more weakness around those names, but the exact opposite did happen.
Yeah, definitely, Neil. So if you're like a shareholder of ASML, you are probably pretty excited with these news. If you're a shareholder of companies like Lam Research, which we've talked about, and luckily, right, Neil, I think either Tuesday or Wednesday when we did our last episode, we kind of explained what were some of our bullish, what were some of the bullish theses for the equipment space. So I'm pretty happy we've kind of discussed that a few days ahead of those earnings. And right now, Neil, a few semiconductors, overall market is up. But two players in the equipment space are up almost 5%. I'm not sure if you can pull them up. The first one is going to be Camtech, which deals with like kind of metrology, which is very crucial for, as we're getting to things like advanced packaging solutions. You need to make sure there's no defects happening between that manufacturing process. Camtech, and they also deal a lot with kind of the HBM market metrology. So Camtech is up roughly 5%. The other one, Neil, is NVMI, N as in Nancy, VMI, which should be Nova Ltd. That one's also up nearly 5% at the day and kind of hits the similar industry. So it does seem like right now, even a few days after the market got these reports from TSMC, semiconductor equipment plays are still pretty bullish right now.
Yeah, I didn't know these names, but as you can see here, Nova up already 30% just this year, which is
Mhm.
already pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. What did you make of the comments that management made about their investments in the United States, the difference in pricing of the products, the fact that newer technologies will first be released in Taiwan and then the United States?
I mean, it makes sense to me of why newer products will be made in Taiwan first. I mean, that's where the companies really focus, has really most of their assets in forms of engineers, in forms of equipment. So it makes perfect sense to me why you would kind of get the newer nodes starting in those other places where they can really perfect it, and they have their top engineering talent. So I don't think that would be anything that I would be worried about, especially since here in the United States, it seems like we're just going to be one node behind. And once it kind of enters volume production, we will kind of restart it here again. So it's nothing to worry as a either investor. It's not. I would say it's non-concerning in my opinion. How about for you, Neil?
Yeah, no, I mean the answer that we got makes sense. R&D is in Taiwan, so much closer when you launch new nodes. makes sense to launch it as close as possible to the R&D folks, because if there are any issues, you can just test something new out just like that instead of waiting huge hour differences and all of that. So it does make sense pricing wise. I mean, it also makes sense when you make things in the United States. It's obviously going to be a bit more expensive than when you make it in Taiwan. So yeah, no, it did make sense. The node wise, I mean, me as a, of course, an Intel shareholder, bag holder, although now with Intel at $22, I feel a little bit richer. Um, it's it's quite encouraging to hear these types of things, because it could mean that Intel, if of course execution is right, Intel could, let's say, catch up, especially to TSMC in the United States, and
In
then maybe
States.
TSMC
Hmm.
Taiwan eventually.
I can see that. I can see that for sure. Right? If you're kind of in the United States, if you're battling one node behind, it kind of gives you that little bit more of a opportunity to kind of level the playing field. So I can see that thinking there, Neo. Two things though, while we're here in TSMC, especially with Capital, and I just wanted to shout out to Star Buccaneers. Just appreciate the support he has given me throughout many years. So again,
I know the guy as
Rojas as
well.
well.
Yeah.
He's awesome. He is awesome. But anyways, back to this manufacturing push. One thing that I find pretty interesting, Neil, is TSMC seems to be the only one that's really moving forward in expanding more manufacturing capabilities and kind of going at a great pace. We heard from last Intel's earnings that they were slowing down some of the production manufacturing plants in Europe, which I think makes sense because they were focused more on mature nodes, but still makes sense. It makes sense in my opinion. But recent reports, Neil, that I was reading this morning, that even Samsung is also going to be delaying some of their plants as well. So it's pretty interesting how, while this market is huge, TSMC is really winning right now because of their lead. Obviously, things can change, but right now, because of their massive lead in advanced manufacturing, they are not holding the brakes as of now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we've seen the this announcement by Intel, by Samsung. That's why we're seeing also some weakness, or we have seen weakness in the equipment makers. They all took a
Mhm.
hit after these statements were made. So it makes total sense. I mean, for me as an Intel shareholder, it also made sense for them to refocus on the key areas for them, not start spending here and there, expanding more and more. It makes sense, especially today. Maybe five years from now, no. But today was the well, today, a couple of months ago, that was the right strategy.
Yeah, I agree, Neil. I'm not a shareholder. I do believe those were ways that they were trying to expand too much in the manufacturing push. I think, hey, it makes sense. Focus right now on advance because 4 or 5 years from now, that advanced manufacturing line can end up theoretically being a more mature, more volume,
Mhm.
less margin business, and you can kind of maybe move that overseas or something like that. So it made perfect sense. But I think this might be a great segue of some Intel rumors that came out, right, Neil?
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Friday, Intel went up about 9-10% or so on the rumors. Again, acquisition rumors. But this time, I think it got an even bigger pump because, of course, you have to mention Elon Musk. You get a lot of clicks and views. But apparently, Elon Musk was mentioned in that report. Unfortunately, I couldn't access the full thing because it was behind the paywall. But some people were already releasing some behind the scenes things. An acquisition by I don't know who, but apparently a company that was not previously named. So I would assume it's not your usual Qualcomm and maybe even Broadcom names, although we don't know. And then when you launch the Elon Musk rumor, I mean, you can make up whatever story you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always some truth to rumors, right, Neil? It's. I'm not saying it's exactly what the rumor said, but it just, to me, seeing Pat leaving the company. Pat, I think we even talked about it. He's one that was bleeding blue, right? He would bleed blue. He cared what really happened to that company. I would say it would be like his baby. And for him to leave, it was probably because there was some fight that he knew he wasn't going to win. And something like this could make sense, right? It doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but it just continues to add to that evidence that yes, maybe there's something crazy happening. And It's going to be an interesting story because with all the government spending happening here in the United States, and the Chips Act, and all the money that they're trying to spend on Intel and kind of bring manufacturing back with U.S. company as well. I think there's definitely going to be some push by governments for something like this as well.
Yeah, I mean, the rumors, I mean, it makes sense to me personally. I saw Intel as quite cheap. If you could buy the whole company for, what was it, $90 billion, I think you're getting a great deal here, especially if 18A is on track and is going to be quite successful. I think you're getting a huge bargain here, because like we spoke about this already, the Intel product side is highly profitable for them, and I believe that is already worth quite a lot. So acquisition wise, we also have to think who has the money to do it, right?
Hmm.
Who has the money, the synergies. I mean, I made up a couple of names. Of course, Apple has definitely the money for sure. I said Berkshire Hathaway has the money, but I mean,
Hmm.
this is just because they have so much cash. I mean, they can
And
buy whatever they want. But the rest, I've heard Google, Microsoft. Google has already enough antitrust issues right now. Microsoft
mm,
just finished off their Activision acquisition. I don't think they're going to spend another $100 billion, but who knows? Nvidia tried with ARM, didn't work out. I don't think they'll do Intel. So yeah, I mean, the list becomes shorter and shorter and shorter. It For Broadcom, it would make sense, a lot of sense actually, especially for all the Intel assets and the foundry and all of that. But they also did a huge acquisition with
acquisition.
VMware. So
Yep. Hmm.
again, the list to me is extremely small, and I just don't know who. The U.S.
Yeah.
government, yeah, that's probably the number one on the list, or Elon
I
Musk.
think if Neil, I'm again, this is all speculations, and I think if we're gonna see an acquisition, it's not gonna be by one individual company. I think it's gonna be more of a partnership,
Hmm.
with multiple different companies, as this can maybe help eliminate a lot of the regulators' concerns. If we start to see one, obviously with this administration, maybe regulations concerns aren't going to be as heavy, as we're really trying to kind of push innovation one way or another. So it's but I do think if it does end up happening, it's going to be where it's going to be multiplayer partnership acquisition, and each player might take like a lead in a certain segment. So one of the rumors, right, Neil, was we had Qualcomm, we had Global Foundries, and we had Elon Musk all in the same room. If you were to tell me, hey, what would be your crazy imagination? It would be a trifecta partnership. Um, Qualcomm would run the Intel client side and the server side. Global Foundries would run the manufacturing side, and something like Elon party, not necessarily Elon, but another party, kind of be the overruler or overviewer. So I think that's what we're going to end up getting. Neil, is going to be more of like a multi-partnership acquisition.
Yeah, no, I can actually see that happening, especially with the Qualcomm side of things, and Global Foundries, of course, as well. Um, I just don't know how it's going to work because of the Chips Act, right? Because Intel
Hmm.
still needs, what was it, 51% control of Intel Foundry, I believe. So I don't know how that's going to work out, other than, well, I don't know, a new agreement being made. But let's focus a little bit on the hypothetical that Elon Musk might acquire it. Well, Elon Musk, it's probably going to be either Tesla, or I don't know, Neuralink won't acquire Intel, but it's probably going to be Tesla. I think so. Um, what could he bring to the table, other than, of course, money, vision, execution, layoffs, and probably a ton of talent with him?
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe not outside of Elon. I think an acquisition is just needed in Intel because it would shift the whole work culture around, in my opinion, at Intel, which is really needed, right? No matter if you get a new CEO, still being Intel, you'll be like, hey, look, I'm still working for the same company. The work culture is going to stay the same. I think a way for morale to increase, again, just could be, I could be wrong. Maybe someone on the chat could prove me wrong. Could say otherwise. But if you get another company to buy it, it makes it feel like, hey, look, I'm no longer working for Intel. I'm working for a new company. So maybe the work culture is definitely going to be different, and that alone can I think work culture and just having engineers have a new form of motivation can really be the turnaround story that you need for a company like Intel. Um, I actually like Rojas's suggestion. I actually thought Amazon could be in that list, especially since Amazon right now has a lot of great partnerships with their 18A nodes. So there could be some assets that are won. Again, all this is hypothetical, people, but just scenarios of who could be playing. And then Amazon, I know, is developing a lot of AI chip solutions, so there could be a win for them as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. Going back to what you said with the partnerships, it would make a lot of sense for some of these big tech players, right? The Amazons, the Microsoft, to basically say, you know what, we're going to invest billions in Intel
Mhm.
Foundry. We're even going to give you one of the best, I don't know, talents that we have to work with you, but we want a chunk of the future profits and
Mhm.
the manufacturing lines as well, which would make a lot of sense. And that could put a fire under the Intel employees, because we've seen already layoffs right now, which already probably put fire under some of the employees. Unfortunately, that's just because Intel
That's one
overhired
method.
and
Yep.
yeah,
Hmm.
and just didn't work out. And then when you've got folks like Amazon, Microsoft coming in, I think you are incentivized to, well, see that, oh, okay, now we have to now we have to make sure this becomes a success. And if not, well, Amazon and Microsoft will just come in and replace the old Intel engineers with the Microsoft and Amazon engineers. Plus, again, it makes sense to make sure that an Intel foundry is successful in the United States. So yeah, I just come back to the same thing I've been saying time and time again. I just think that Intel is too big to fail. How they will become a success, I don't know. There are various ways: acquisitions, partnerships, takeovers, you name it. I just don't see Intel going away anytime soon. And if someone can buy it at $90 billion for the whole company, I
Yeah,
think they're getting a great, great deal.
I agree. I agree. I think Informs, if they can turn things around, it's like, I mean, you're buying stuff probably at way less than the dollar paid for it. So I do believe in forms of assets. If you can turn around, it could be a major return on investment. Um, Neil, I do have this question, and for some reason, I don't have control to chat this today. But V, I love. Thanks for the super chat. Pretty much asked, what are our thoughts on Dell Technologies? Um, any thoughts there, Neil? That maybe you want to jump into first?
No, Maurice, to be honest, I didn't really check on any news related to Dell more recently. I just remember from what we've seen at the end of 2024, the last quarters. I mean, I think that there's still quite a lot of momentum in those types of companies in that side of the industry. I don't see that changing anytime soon. I did see that they did change the laptop line, the XPS laptop line. They changed the names to a more like boring, like normal Ultra or something like that. But
Oh
other
yeah.
than that,
Mhm.
yeah, I
Yeah, I mean, for me, I love usually these markets, the hardware market. I'm pretty sure you're the same way, Neo. It's not one that I like to invest in just because there's a lot of competition, right? At the end of the day, um, it just in here you have HPE, you have I forget all the other players, but you have all the other players that you're fighting.
SMCI.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So on you have a lot of competition. Lenovo, Asus. You have a lot of players, and all of them are both in the consumer side, consumer laptops, and they also play in kind of the AI server space, right? So there's a lot of competition in that space. Obviously, right now, one of the bullish thesis is kind of very similar to almost every AI stock, that the AI market is growing and it's kind of a new market opportunity. So new dollar spending is increasing and everybody could be a winner, right now that's could be one of the bullish cases. So Dell definitely has performed really well. I mean, I know they had that cool partnership with OpenAI to build that super colossal computer. So mm, my biggest bearish thing, I just don't invest in these markets because of the competitive landscape, but that doesn't mean that the stock can't do well. It's just that one I wouldn't enjoy for my risk to reward tolerance.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the margins are quite slim. Competition is there, so I've seen better businesses. Let's put it that way. I've
Hmm.
seen better businesses to invest in. Lots of questions about Nvidia and their price targets. Um,
Let's see. What is it in trading at right now, Neil?
I think we're back, yeah, close to 140.
Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Oh, we are at 140, 140.60.
Huh, okay, even better.
Well, I don't know, Neil, maybe because where you're at the when you look at stock prices, Neil, do you see it in US dollars or in
Yeah, yeah,
you
US
don't see it?
dollars. Yeah.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't know if
Yeah,
there
I
was.
mean, it would be strange. I mean, anyways, I win because US euro, the majority of my money is in US dollars. Euro is coming down, so I win.
You
Actually, I win
win.
more. Yeah, because even when a stock goes down, if it's not down that much, and I held it for the last couple of years, I'm actually up
Oh,
just purely on,
still.
on the on the currency exchange, which is quite funny. And then when it's going up, I'm going up more.
Now, completely off topic, Neil. When something like that happens, does your brokerage kind of show you like the currency conversion gains that you might have gotten from it? And do you have to pay taxes on that?
No taxes on
No.
that, but it does show you. That's
Oh,
why,
okay.
because I have an Excel sheet where I write exactly what's when I bought and what I bought. So when I go to the bank account, I see that sometimes I'm like, if on the Excel sheet I'm up 20%, on the bank account I'm like up 24%. I'm like,
Mhm,
wait a second,
mhm,
did I
mhm,
buy more?
mhm.
did I buy at a lower price? What the heck is this? But no, it's always the difference euro dollars, which is always a
Yeah.
nice surprise. Always a nice surprise.
All right. So, Neil, we got this question from Travis. Is Nvidia going to 200? Travis, I mean, I hope it is. I can't tell you if it is. I mean, at the end of the day, Travis, I said it in plenty of my videos. If you own Nvidia at these levels, you need to know you need to be extremely bullish in the AI space and that the AI market is going to continue to invest heavily. I do believe that's the case. Um, and for that to also happen is we need to continue to see AI innovation going improving at rapid levels. If all that is true, I wouldn't say it's impossible to get to those levels, but obviously going from a $3 trillion company to 200 will make it at least a $5 trillion company. There has to be a lot of spending happening. So if you're in Nvidia now, that should be your bullish thesis that investing is going to continue.
Agreed. Agreed. Nothing to add here.
Mhm. Nvidia, Matthew. Hello, folks. Nvidia decent day. Yep. Matthew, just want to say, hoping you're feeling better. I know in one of my previous comments you mentioned that you were feeling sick. So best of luck and hope you're feeling better. Uh, and Neil, you put up a question here.
Yeah. Any thoughts on where Vertiv sits in the data center? Are they the top player, or where do you rank them? I know you covered, I think, Vertiv once or twice, maybe more.
Yeah, so I did a deep dive on them, Neil. And for those that are not familiar with Vertiv, this is a company that helps build the infrastructure for the data centers, right, Neil? So they provide a lot of cooling solutions, a lot of thermal solutions, and I forget what was the third. It was power management, cooling, and there was another that they do in form of the data center infrastructure. Um, I think this is a bullish trend, especially now with the AI diffusion rule that just came out by by the Biden administration. I don't know if you read it a little bit, Neil. Originally, Neil, I thought this restriction was gonna get shut down by the Trump administration. The more I read about it, the more I don't think so, because it really does seem like it's a way for U.S. investments to continue in the U.S. So just a top level overview. If you're a cloud server provider, you're going to want to have 75% of your compute power in the tier one countries, including United States. The other 25% can go to tier two countries, which is a huge list as well. So in theory, if you want to continue to expand globally outside of the United States, you need to first invest in the United States to increase your total compute, because then you're going to be able to increase more in the international markets. Vertiv can obviously be a winner there because you're going to see more data centers being built here in tier one countries like the United States. I believe Canada is like a tier one as well. England and all kind of US
Well,
allies are tier one as
technically
well.
speaking, Canada might be United States pretty soon. So
Pretty soon. um, so Vertiv can definitely be a winner here. The only thing I would say with Neil with this company is this is not a stock that I believe will ever have triple digit revenue growth returns because data centers take time, right? You're not building 500 data centers at the same time. You're building one data center here per month or per year or whatever. So, this at the end of the day is a construction company. What you're really kind of looking for is backlog bookings. And you have to make sure that you're increasing your capacity as well, because if not, competitors might come into the space. And I think the construction market, it's a little too slow for me, but I can see why maybe certain investors that might not like the heavy volatility can benefit from this. And this is another way, Neil, of like, you don't need to be bullish on Nvidia to do this. You just need to be bullish on data centers being built up. And companies can either make those data centers with CPUs, with GPUs, with ASIC solutions, their own solutions, right? So as long as you're bullish in compute power increasing and not necessarily one company, Vertiv might be a safe play.
Voila, great overview and probably a good answer to that question. I don't know why I demoted you. Maybe because of the chatting. I don't know why the system did that. It's a punishment for not being on time.
I promise I'll be on time next time.
If you see another question that you want me to highlight, let me know.
I would like to hear your thoughts on this, Neil. Joseph mentioned, do you see robotics as a new trend coming soon? Obviously, I know you're big into Tesla, so they're big into the robotics market. What are your thoughts here in kind of the robotic space, one in Tesla, but just the overview as well?
I mean, I think it's definitely going in that direction, right? The robotics direction we're going. I mean, it's going to take a while. Humanoid robots, I don't see them walking on the street anytime soon. I don't expect to own one anytime soon because the price of it will just be just super, super high at first. But eventually, I do think that a lot of folks will have a humanoid robot at home, whether it's going to be the Optimus one, whether it's going to be from, I don't know, the other companies that are making them, remains to be seen. Um, but yeah, there's definitely a robotics trend coming soon. And unlike other trends, I do think that we're going to see results way sooner than expected and than the other ones. Like we've talked with quantum stuff. Again, with robotics, I think manufacturing wise, especially when it comes to Tesla, they got the manufacturing. It's just now up to them to scale it up, make sure that it makes sense to produce those robots and sell them outside of Tesla, because at first it's going to be for Tesla's use, and then for probably other companies, and then only for consumers. But definitely before the end of the decade, I think we're going to see some humanoid robots. Now, I know he said robotics in general, so I'm sure there are a lot of other stuff when we talk about robotics, but I'm focusing here on the humanoid stuff.
Yeah, I agree, Neil. I feel like sometimes excitement might be too early to where we are at. But I agree, by the end of this decade, which is only 5 years away, I think if I was a betting man, I could safely assume that we are getting maybe not true volume mass productions of robots, but we're getting some nice production in volumes, right? So I agree by the end of this decade. I mean, we hear companies like Nvidia even really talk about this physical AI and the robotics market. So you kind of just see you see reports that OpenAI is not reports. I've actually seen their management mention that they are hiring engineers for robotics in the electrical engineering field, right? So it showcases that they see something right now. I think OpenAI, in my opinion, would only be doing something like this if they do see that it's something that they can use their AI solutions in the close by bait, something really close. So I think robotics is going to be close within now to the next 5 years would be my best timeline to be an actual timeline. Maybe by this end of the year, we get some pretty cool announcements. Not something that will be for the consumer world, but at least just some cool announcements to continue the momentum and hype being built up on it.
Yeah, I mean, if we just take Elon's word with a grain of salt, he said I mean, this year already they would have a couple of whether it's hundreds or maybe even thousands of Optimus robots, so inside of Tesla. So maybe we could see an huge Optimus event later this year remains to be seen. But yeah, I do think, I mean, there is that quote that Steve Jobs did put, I think, when he presented the iPhone. If you're serious about software, you have to make your own hardware. And I think that's why we're seeing companies like OpenAI, pure software, but might pivot also to hardware. I think we're going to see a bit more than that. Nvidia, I don't see them making their own robot, but I, of course, expect to have Nvidia software and hardware in a lot of those robots in the future.
Yeah, definitely, Neil. And if I want to say, if I was an investor that wanted to kind of get into the robotics market, a few companies I would look at are, at least in the semiconductor line chain, companies that provide chips to automotive markets. Because at the end of the day, I mean, even Tesla, I think, has said it fine that automotives are just another form of robotics. So those similar type of chips, if they go in a car, especially in things like autonomous vehicles, you're most likely going to also see them in the robotics market. So I think those would be it. It's probably going to be difficult to find a small robotics company that can succeed, but a company already in the automotive market will have that optionality to enter into those spaces. And that's why, Neil, I'm really excited for companies like On Semiconductor. I think we talked about them in the past, where they're mainly focused in the automotive market, which is pretty weak, but they have the optionality to kind of use their solutions in things like robotics. Now, the question is, when does that happen?
Yeah. So you would say that Qualcomm would also be a big player there.
Yeah, I mean, Qualcomm definitely another big players. Anybody who's focusing, I mean, in the autonomous, I mean, networking is very important, and we know Qualcomm is great with their Wi-Fi and modem solutions. So definitely something that would be crucial. And obviously, right, Qualcomm is also another one that's doing a lot with local LLMs, with ARM-based CPUs, with Internet of Things. So Qualcomm could definitely be another player. And now, Neil, I'm gonna listen to maybe their previous earnings call to see if they've even talked about robotics in the past. I think that would be a company to also keep an eye on for.
Yeah. And I mean, speaking of ARM, I have something to share because ARM was down when we started talking, and now it's up close to 4%. So I want to pull up one tweet that could explain it because I think someone commented on that. So apparently, we have this thing going on here. SoftBank's CEO, he said the following. Apparently, ARM, OpenAI's Sam Altman, and Oracle's Larry Ellison are reportedly set to meet at the White House today with plans to announce a $100 billion initial commitment to Stargate, potentially scaling to $500 billion over 4 years. So when this was announced, ARM suddenly went up, which you can see right here. It was basically flat to down-ish, and then poof, up 3.6% right now.
That's pretty interesting, Neil. I'm just trying to think of how this can go. Just speculating, right? We'd definitely love to hear from the chat. What do you think is going to happen? Because three players were there, right? We have ARM, which has their X80, their ARM architecture. Um, then you have OpenAI, big player in the AI space, and the other one was Larry, which is Oracle. Right, Neil?
Yeah,
Who has a huge clouding place. I know Stargate, isn't Stargate the name of the huge data center that is expected to be built by OpenAI and Micro? Let me see, Stargate. I'm gonna just
I
Google
just know
Stargate.
Stargate it was a TV show, no? Stargate Atlantis or something like that.
Yeah, Stargate supercomputer. So Stargate Supercomputer is a $100 billion project by Microsoft and OpenAI to build an AI supercomputer that will power OpenAI's next generation artificial intelligence system. The project is named after the science fiction film where scientists create a device for traveling between galaxies.
Ah,
Um,
voilà. From the TV show. Exactly
yeah.
that.
So yeah, I mean, the Stargate and the $100 billion sense kind of was like deja vu for a second. Why? Now I'm curious why ARM would be ARM is there. Be a heavy investor is he, Neil? If Satoshi is uh or not Satoshi, I forget his name.
Masayoshi.
Masa, yeah, is he investing in in OpenAI or Oracle?
That's a good question. I wouldn't be surprised if he's an investor in OpenAI. They definitely own ARM, basically 90% now of the float or something like that. Not the float actually. So what could ARM do? I guess I don't know. Provide them the architecture for all of what needs to be built. Which I mean the trifecta there, the triangle that we're getting is quite powerful because basically Microsoft, ARM, and Oracle. Because OpenAI, I mean, let's face it, it's Microsoft at this point.
Yeah, so that was gonna be interesting. I mean, something we're probably gonna cover on Thursday, right, Neil? If something crazy comes out. But $100 billion Stargate being a massive supercomputer, um, I think can really drive some excitement to the semiconductor space. And I still can't I can't. The only thing I can think about, Neil, is last week we talked about ARM probably producing their own chips.
Yeah.
Now, can it be seen that maybe ARM somehow has a market that they're helping OpenAI build an AI chip, and that's how this all plays together? And like I mentioned, right, every rumor has some truth behind it. Um, but yeah, it's going to be interesting, and I don't want to have too many speculations in this episode already.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it does make sense because again, I think OpenAI, Sam Altman, they are quite serious when it comes to making hardware. So partnering up with ARM could make sense. Could make sense. Of course, remains to be seen what happens in the next coming days if we've got more news. When I read it, when I saw the $100 billion, I was like, oh, but we already heard SoftBank talk about the $100 billion
Mm-hmm.
investment, and then Trump saying, "Oh, you can put it, you can put another $100 billion
Yeah, to
to him."
double
So I was
it.
like, "Isn't that the same thing?" But then I see the other names out there, and okay, maybe it's I get that. I guess they have way more money to spend. So yeah, no, interesting development for sure to follow.
Yeah, and I mean for Stargate, like I mentioned, huge supercomputer. So at the end of the day, even if they build AI chips, um, we can see Nvidia actually ended up trading a nice amount higher, around that same time of the announcement. So at the end of the day, in my opinion, I'm going to say market share leader is still going to be Nvidia in the AI accelerator space. So if this $100 billion Supergate Stargate computer gets announced even more, I think Nvidia could obviously be a big player from this and create some nice momentum.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, Oracle also up close to 6% right now on that news. Whenever we're hearing about huge plans and expansions, it makes sense that Nvidia goes up, even if Nvidia is not mentioned, because when you basically own, what was it, close to 90% of the market,
Mm-hmm.
it's safe to assume that you're going to benefit from that. And I think that's why we're seeing that movement here. Oracle, yeah, I remember.
And
I think it was 12 months ago exactly. We talked about Oracle, and
mhm.
yeah, since then the stock is up 51%, doing quite well.
Yeah, definitely, Neil. And I want to say one of the things is many people go, it's like, hey, Jose, 90% of the market share. This means it's pretty easy for other players to come and take market from NVIDIA. I want to say there's a little bit of a caveat here, Neil, is the supply chain. The reason NVIDIA is also able to keep this market share is because they are becoming a big customer of the supply chain space. So if they don't really obviously TSMC is going to give some opportunities to other players, but they're probably going to keep most of the opportunity for NVIDIA, as it is kind of like it's safer to assume Nvidia is going to win than some random ASIC solution and some random company. So it makes the best sense as a business for TSMC to continue to give the bigger lines to someone who has a higher chance of success. Um, so I think that's going to continue. We hear supply constraints is still going to be tight with things like advanced packaging. So that alone helps Nvidia also continue to control a huge market share in the space.
I agree. I think, I mean, from TSM's standpoint, they will collect billions of dollars no matter what, right? if it's coming from Nvidia or if it's coming from AMD or Apple or whatnot, they know money is coming their way. Of course, would make sense to take the money first from someone like Nvidia, because you know that production will be, well, super high because of the demand that they have, so it makes sense. But yeah, it's a luxurious position, let's say, that
Hmm.
TSM are in right now.
Definitely.
We do have, I don't know if you follow this company closely, but thanks to chat for reminding me this. We do have a big earnings, I would say, after hours, a big earnings report from Netflix.
Hmm.
Um, what do you think? What do you think they'll report? I don't know if you're following this company closely, but I assume you use Netflix as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't follow the business too much, Neo. But I do want to say from as a consumer, I feel like they've gotten a lot better with the movies and the show production. So that could be pretty much bullish. And um, but I would definitely be curious to see how they're doing with their advertisement push on the free side or their cheaper version, and also how they're doing with their password cutting down thing. So definitely opportunity. I think in the long run, it will kind of give us a sense of how the early entry of how the consumer market is doing, can give us some entry of maybe how some of the consumer plays are going to do later on.
Yeah, and I agree. I think them being one of the first, let's say, big, let's call it, yeah, tech companies to report, we can already get a couple of signs, especially since this is really from a consumer standpoint. Is there a lot of churn? Is there not a lot of churn? Now with advertising, how's that business doing? Which could help us understand maybe other players in that
Hmm.
market. Um, but yeah, I mean, Netflix is one of those companies where after the big crash, when they were like losing 1 million or 2 million subs 2 years ago or something like that, it went down $190 or so. Blackman bought and then sold at a loss. I was like, this just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. Of course, Netflix is just a no-brainer, right? They're not going to go
Yeah,
away, but unfortunately, couldn't buy them all, right? Couldn't buy this one, but it's an amazing
same.
business. It's an amazing business, and they prove that the streaming business can be a highly profitable one if managed correctly, of course.
Hmm.
Um, so it's going to be interesting to see. I now own small amount of shares of Disney, so good news for Netflix could be good news for Disney Plus, but let's see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. Now that they're more established in the ad space, I agree that they could provide maybe some insight. I mean, obviously, if such a small player in the advertisement game like Netflix, or such a entry, not a small player, such a new player in the space, let's say they do, hey, look, we're sold out on advertisement spending, on advertisement space, that can overall be seen as a very bullish sign for the Metas, the Snaps, and all these other players in the advertisement space.
Yeah, especially since now they're starting also with the live content, which is something that, I mean, I've been talking about this for a while. I think one of the, I won't say the first videos, but I think 3 years ago I have a video up on my channel. Netflix will be $1,000 in the next couple of years. Probably got laughed at a lot, but here we are, a couple of years later, and we're pretty close to $1,000. We are now getting live content on the platform, which was also one of the predictions. Which, to me, is a no-brainer. If you want to destroy linear cable, you got to go live and take the sports aspects of it, because that's the only thing. That's the only reason why linear still exists, in my opinion.
Definitely. I completely agree with that. Neil, we have a few questions here. One from Scoops, if you can pull it out recently. What are your thoughts on Onto Innovation and Camtech? Are they better buys than Micron? Um, Scoops, I want to say they're obviously two different markets, right? Onto and Camtech are in the memory space, are in the equipment space, where Micron is in the memory market. Both Onto and Camtech do focus on advanced packaging, kind of in the advanced packaging world, because they do more things like metrology and kind of just the inspection that make sure things are that the chips are made perfect, right? And with advanced packaging, that's such a crucial part because you're kind of stacking chips on top of each other. You're kind of putting things in places that are very difficult to put on. So the aspect of inspection is crucial for making sure yields continue to be strong. So I personally enjoy Onto and Camtech more, um, because we kind of got that nice tailwind, right, from TSMC, that they're going to spend a lot more money in capital expenditure. I think Micron, in my opinion, would be one of those that would be more volatile. If this market does really well, Micron can be a really, really high winner. If this market doesn't do that well, it can be a really, really big loser. So I think investing in the two, you kind of have a different range of kind of the returns and risk behind it. But I personally enjoy the equipment space more than I enjoy Micron right now.
Voilà. I have nothing to add to the other ones because I don't know much, but I'm an investor in Micron, so I have to go with Micron. Voilà. This is my answer.
Yeah, and like my point, Neil, wasn't any bearish sentiment to Micron. It's more like I do believe it's going to be a little bit more volatile depending on how this memory space
Yeah,
transforms.
for sure. As we've seen, a couple of weeks ago with the Q1 guidance, that's basically $1 billion lower than expected.
Definitely, Neil. Anything else, Neil, you see on your side?
We have here, how about the future of, I believe, the Mobileye and Nebius? I mean, Mobileye is an interesting one, right? Because it's owned by Intel. It's also a publicly traded company. It's, I don't know. It's an interesting play. Especially as we move towards autonomous vehicles and all of that. But I mean, from what I've seen management say and present in the last couple of weeks, it's still, I think, a 2026, 2027 type of thing. In the meantime, they can still sell some solutions. But when you talk about real autonomy and stuff like that, I believe it was 26, 27. So the huge movements will probably happen later. And in the meantime, it's going to be about announcements, execution, progress on the next generation of solutions. So remains to be seen that they've got great partnerships with various automakers. So we'll see what happens, because I've been hearing about Mobileye solutions for a while and pilot programs here and there, but I'm yet to see actual results.
Definitely, Neil. And again, this probably kind of like in that Qualcomm space. This would be another interesting one to see if in any recent earnings have they mentioned anything about the robotic space. Because again, we've heard it from Elon that if an autonomous vehicle moving from one space to another, you can kind of transverse a lot of that information, a lot of assets, not completely 100%, but a lot of the assets probably into the autonomous robotic space. So we'll definitely be curious to see if that's something they've mentioned in previous earnings.
Yeah, for sure. And as for Nebius, I think we discussed that last week. Super high growth company as of now. Lots of future projections and expectations. Stock did run up quite a lot in the last couple of weeks, so remains to be seen. It's quite interesting to keep an eye on Nebius Group in 2025. That's for sure. We have here a question about booking holdings. I don't know. I don't own it. Don't really cover it that much. I cover Airbnb, but I do know bookings because I use the platform. Maybe you do it. You do use it as well. Tremendous company, great management. I know everybody's been, myself included, talking about Airbnb, but bookings has been performing extremely well in the last couple of years, and I expect it to continue in the future. I haven't checked on valuation, pricing, and all of that, but all in all, very good company.
Yeah, Neil, no thoughts here on my side on bookings. Usually I do Airbnb or hotels, direct hotel websites with
Okay.
my power with like royalty, not royalty, what's it called? Reward systems.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you have a reward system, then you can get better prices, points. Makes sense. We have here this one. I think could be interesting.
All right, so Sanjay, we have a few people have said AMD's GPUs may be better for AI inference and NVIDIA for AI training. Is that correct? And will this help AMD take some of NVIDIA's data center GPU share? This one's pretty interesting, Neil. And first, on a top level overview, this could be true. this is pretty much true, right? At least in the training side for Nvidia's training, doing well in training. The real question is, will it help them lose will it help them take market share from Nvidia? The question is, does that big tech player or that cloud server provider that offers all these GPUs, would they rather buy Nvidia for inferencing, or would they rather make their own ASIC solutions? And I think the answer is the latter right now. I mean, Google, for example, they have their TPUs, which are great for a lot of their things like inferencing and even training, right? They still buy NVIDIA GPUs. They still make huge systems with NVIDIA GPUs, but they do not have an MI300 line, even for cloud solutions. So NVIDIA's is great for training, and they probably also use it for some inferencing. They also rent it out for other players. Now, if the only real reason you would buy the MI300 is because you want to improve your inferencing cost, then is there a competition there? And I think the answer is yes. So AMD can definitely grow from the AI market, but I've said it in many episodes. I don't believe it's the next NVIDIA, and I don't believe the growth potential is as high as some bullish investors make it out to be. It's still bullish, but not as bullish. So I want to kind of like control that bullish sentiment for their AI accelerated GPUs as of right now. Maybe when we get the acquisition of CT Systems completed, when we get more about their AI accelerator, the UA link, which can help with a lot of other things, then that might be a different story, Neil.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question was asked because of that link with Meta, right? Meta and AMD and inference for the company, and that exclusivity of the MI300 um, remains to be seen. I think MI400 is going to give us a lot more answers than what we are going to get probably this year, and maybe that's why the market is a bit on the sidelines, other than the AI revenue guidance. I think we are going to have to wait until the second half of the year to see the MI350, and then hear a bit more about MI400 and how that's going. And maybe in the meantime, who knows, maybe we'll get lucky and we get some software updates from AMD as well. I think that will be greatly appreciated. But yeah, I've definitely been hearing a lot of focus on yeah, AMD much better at inference, so they'll destroy Nvidia in the future. I think one I've seen a couple of YouTube creators talk about that. They've seen one sentence, they've taken that completely out of context and just run with it. I think it's quite
Yeah.
dangerous, but there
I,
is some truth. But
Mhm.
I just don't see how suddenly Nvidia will not be there when it comes
Yeah.
to inference.
And again, I think the only reason I think this Meta, I don't know why I keep seeing it in all my comments as well that Meta just announced this exclusivity. They kind of talked about it like 4 or 5 months ago during some event.
Exactly.
It's pretty old, and like you mentioned, it's not a true exclusivity. And the only reason I want to say Meta is doing this is because they're not that good at designing their own AI chip. If they were Google, who was good at designing their own AI chip, you wouldn't really have seen this exclusivity. So I think your investment should be like, hey, look, for Nvidia is there's no real competition that can make a better chip at the moment. Now the question is the kind of pricing. For AMD is it the pricing? Is it also the competition of the other players? And that just starts to add up to which one they can really choose from. So just be careful, as obviously Meta is also focusing on developing their own AI chip. They're just a little bit slower than they may than some of the other players.
Yeah. So yeah, it was this one, Llama 405 billion model using MI300X exclusively for inferencing, because one server with 8 MI300X can fit in that model. Um, Again, we've probably both spoken about this a couple of months ago when this was revealed. I don't know why some people just run with it today, maybe just to fit the narrative. Oh, AMD is cheap, we have to buy it because Meta. This is old news. And if you've heard Meta Zuck talk with Jensen, Meta is one of their huge clients. So it's not like,
Yeah.
oh, they're going full aim. No, they have huge Nvidia clusters as well at Meta, probably bigger than AMD's as of
Yeah.
now.
And Neil, this is so weird because it makes it seem like I'm bearish on an AMD, and I'm not bearish on AMD. I'm super bullish on the stock. It's my number two company. But that bullish point is not one I'm super bullish on. There's other points to be bullish on AMD, and I want to say following that one is going to lead to what I believe is going to be disappointment in the short term. It could be great in the long term of things if we kind of like you mentioned, the MI400, the CT system. But I believe if that's your bullish case that the inference is going to rocket on AMD, I think it's going to lead to a bad time in the short term.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And we are going to, I think the 4th of February is AMD's earnings report. So we're probably going to cover everything you need to know the live stream before that. So you're all ready. If you've seen any other question or if anyone has questions, now will be the perfect time to start asking those in the chat.
There's a question here from Joseph, Neil, unless you have one right now. Pretty much ASML. How do you see ASML turn around this year? Joseph, I think it could be, especially because, Neil, right, we heard from TSMC that they're going to be spending a lot of money on capital expenditure this year. I think, Neil, they mentioned about 70% is going to be on advanced node technology. And the big wallet or the big ticket item in advanced nodes is ASML's machine. So I think this could be a nice year where this quarter or maybe next quarter, ASML is going to be like, hey, look, 2025 may still be a little bit slower, maybe not as slow as we expected, and that could definitely drive some nice sentiment towards the stock.
Yeah, but I would add that, remember, later this decade they will be releasing their next generation machines, which are expected to be way more expensive than the current one. I think we spoke about that last week. It remains to be seen if those types of big players are willing to spend so much more on newer machines when they can still use the older ones and achieve, let's say, decent, if not better results at the moment. So yeah, we'll see. I think sentiment with all the equipment makers, like we said last week, is pretty low, was lower last week as well. But yeah, turnaround this year, I think a couple of good comments from management could definitely turn the stock around for sure.
To David Ben, Neil has a question. Any thoughts on INVZ? This is not one I follow, Neil. Would you happen to follow this one and know anything about it?
No, first time. Maybe not the first time, because I mean, in our comment sections, you're probably getting a lot of ticker symbols and names where you're like, never heard that one before.
Yeah. Then we have Travis Leroy, a quick power up. Will Trump revoke the AI diffusion rule? Neil, originally I thought the answer was going to be yes. I think now it's a little bit more complicated. I've read a lot of different places. I've used AI to kind of help me read through it as well because it's a multi-100-page report. So from what I'm reading, one of the push that obviously the Trump administration is kind of like America first, and it does seem like the AI diffusion rule is pushing that, maybe not too much on Nvidia, but at least for the other players impacted this, it is going to provide some nice bullish sentiments for cloud server providers, your Microsoft, your Google, your Amazon. So I think now is 50-50 in my opinion, where before I used to thought it would be a high, that yes, he would have actually done it. So if he doesn't do it, Neil, within the next 2 weeks, I think he might not do it.
Okay, fair enough. I have nothing to add extra to this.
I have another one, Neil, from Nathan. Check Lisa's speech last September. She talked about ASIC that time. She thinks GPU will still be the dominant player for AI accelerators. And Neil, I think we both believe this, right? I think we both believe that the GPUs are going to dominate. I mean, not only Lisa, Jensen has said it. But Nathan, I think your previous question was mainly more on inferencing. And I think that's what we were discussing, the inferencing. So now that's just a specific workload. And now that's when you can bring ASIC to that discussion. If you're looking at the whole AI accelerator market with various workloads, then yes, the answer is GPUs are going to dominate.
And I also agree with this one. If they develop their ROCm better, there'll be customers willing to buy the MI series, making, I agree with that. The software is of extreme importance here.
Yeah, definitely. And even the small market share is for AMD is going to be massive because they're, an extra $4 or $5 billion for AMD is a really, really big deal per year.
Yeah, I mean, if you can grow your market share in a growing market,
Mm-hmm.
it's quite a good deal. Quite a good deal.
And Neil, you can still even lose market share in a growing market and still be increasing in revenue. So
Yep.
even if you're a loser, you can still be a winner.
Yeah, that's the Intel way. A quick SoFi question. It's up 9% today. I don't know. It's a hope. I mean, probably because of sentiment around Trump administration and all of that, and these types of stocks that have been previously hit under the Biden administration because of various things when it comes to the lending side of the business. Probably that. Plus, I don't want to say it, but I do think that sometimes SoFi does trade like plenty of other speculative stocks out there, which I don't believe it is. But it's up 9% today. I haven't seen any specific news with regards to the company. So I don't know. I do have a video about it coming out in 2 hours. So maybe that's why.
That's exactly why the market knows, Neil.
Exactly. The market
I
always
leaked
knows.
information that you.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I remember 1.5 years ago or something like that, I made a video about Nvidia's earnings before the earnings report. And then Nvidia released preliminary results. You remember that? When suddenly Nvidia had preliminary results that were released out of nowhere. And I was like, I just released my video 15 minutes ago.
Oh man. Um, some more fire questions before we head out, Neil. Meditation mind. Um, are you more bullish, Neil, on Nvidia or Tesla?
Well, obviously, since I own Tesla, I have to go with Tesla. But yeah, I mean, you can be bullish both because
Yeah.
essentially, if both succeed, right, autonomy, robotics, both will be huge winners. So
Mhm.
I guess you'll be fine holding Nvidia or Tesla.
Yeah, I agree, Neil. I think if you're bullish in the AI space, both players could be winners here. Obviously, like you with Tesla, I'm really big in the Nvidia, so I have to put that Nvidia vote.
Yeah. And Amazon, when we talked about robotics before, I wanted to add Amazon. Amazon is also a huge player in robotics. Not the humanoid ones, but robotics inside factories.
Yeah, let's see. Maybe one final question here from Skittles. Do I like analog devices? Um, Neil, do you follow any of these kind of analog chips? I want to hear your thoughts first.
I other than the usual names that we covered, I did follow a long time ago, a long time ago, Texas Instruments.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't checked on them in a while. But I mean, last time I checked, they were still a very good company. I know people think that analog is dead and boring, but I think they're still quite important.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, I agree. I think this is a boring company, boring market I don't own. But if you're seeing a nice bullish trend in the automotive market, in consumer electronics, in anything tech related, you're going to see a nice influx in analog devices and either Texas Instrument as well. So, not one that I own. I don't hate it, but I just wouldn't buy it. I would
Yeah.
rather buy a ETF, a semiconductor ETF, if I want to be bored.
Fair enough. I do have to answer this one from David. He's also a Tesla shareholder. How much of a bull can you be when Tesla is over 110 PE? So, look, to me, an argument will never be won when mentioning a PE, especially not when we talk about companies like Tesla. I know the PE is high. I think everybody knows the PE is high for Tesla, has been high for quite a long time, but it will look like nothing if, of course, autonomy, robotaxi does scale up in the next year or two. Robotics and all of that, 110 PE, the earnings today, the free cash flow today will look like peanuts in the future. Am I buying today? No, but I'm still holding. I did take profits in the last couple of weeks of 2024 in the 400s. I'm fine with that. Still my number one position, so I'm fine. I know it's expensive, but I also know that the upside is quite high. If, of course, they execute and everything goes according to plan. Probably not on time, but it will happen eventually, in my opinion.
And I think you made such a great point that maybe we can end the episode here. That you can be bullish in a company, still take profits, and still not want to buy at the same time, but still be able to hold a sizable position. So all four of whatever things can be true, and you can still be bullish in the company.
Exactly. Great way to end this. So, if you're new here, we have changed, or maybe if you're not new here, we have changed the time a little bit. We are going to still be streaming Tuesday and Thursday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern,
Mhm.
on mine and Jose channels. So yeah, stay tuned for more of these live streams, especially during the earnings season. I think that's going to be very interesting. Lots of things to cover. Probably way more interactions with chat as well. We'll always start with topics that we want to discuss, and then we will pivot towards Q&A. So
Yep.
yeah, thank you all for joining.
Yep. Thank you guys. Appreciate the support from everybody. And Neil, had a lot of fun. So thank you for
Same here.
spending an hour with me.
My pleasure. So we'll see each other on Thursday.
Mhm.